All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here tonight as the North Bergen Historical Society takes a look at a forgotten neighborhood here in North Bergen, the old Tyler Park neighborhood. Now, a lot of people will probably be thinking about, I've never heard of that before. So we'll just get into the explanation of where we're talking about. And where we're talking about is the southernmost section of North Bergen. Okay, so pretty much where we are sitting here in the library tonight is the Tyler Park section. The northern boundary would be 14th Street. Southern boundary would be Secaucus Road down to the Jersey City border. Our western boundary would be over to Kennedy, and the eastern boundary would be over to Tunnelly Avenue. Now, it does have a pretty historic significance here in town. It was very vibrant, huge neighborhood, had a huge draw with a very rich history, and we'll talk about that coming down the road here. And it's often overlooked by not just the downtown residents, but the residents of the town. It's just because the name disappears kind of as fast as it shows up. Now, the origin of the name, we know where it comes from, but it's kind of unclear when we start calling it Tyler Park. And our goal here tonight is just to shed some information and shed some light on this forgotten neighborhood, and especially one of its most important residents. So here we have a very old 1873 map. This is going to be the first time we ever get to see this neighborhood, as we'll call it, right, on a designated map. All right, now the street names are going to look a little different. This is pre-numbering, and we'll go through what the old street names are and what they are today. So again, the name, we know where it comes from. It comes from a guy, and this is a great name. You don't get names like this anymore. Phineas L. Tyler, who's a land developer and entrepreneur. He comes out of Red Hook. Now, Tyler makes his way over here. Like many of the other developers in this area, they come to Hudson County in a post-Civil War era. So these guys are all coming over here 1865, 1870, and they're coming here because there's cheap land. Right? There's nobody here. There's the stuff we know and the locations that we've been told about. There's none of that yet. So there's a big deal for these developers. Now, he is working with a guy named by the name of Charles Gobish, who is a suburban developer. And he's going to aid in the development of Tyler Park. Now, Gobish, he's the money guy, right? Tyler's the brains. Gobish is the money guy. He is the founding member of Hudson City Savings Bank. Some older residents of the area may remember Hudson City, but that's where Gobish is coming from. Now, again, they both partner up and they're active in the Hudson County Real Estate Association. So these guys are kind of speculating where different areas are going to kind of explode and where people are going to be wanting to move to. And Tyler Park is one of them. Now, Gobish lived in Tyler Park and oversaw the development, the division of the properties, and the sales. So he's got a big hand on it, even though his name doesn't get added to it. Now, here's a great old advertisement from when they are going to start lotting this off. Right now, the map was from 1873, but here, if you look real close, you can see they auctioned off. All right, and it says there are 210 splendid full-size lots. All right, located again on Grand, Germania, Columbia, Tunnelly. Right, and again, we'll get into those names. But the auction was held, right, on June 5th, 1871, starting at 2 o'clock. All right. So again, these guys were ready to go. And it's really weird because they were actually holding the auctions on with some properties they owned in Jersey City as well. Now, the streets, they're laid out by Tyler and Gobish, right? The streets, of course, have changed since then. Let's go through some of the street names that retain their names, right? Columbia Ave kept its name. Germania Avenue is actually renamed Liberty Avenue during World War I. There's a huge wave of anti-German sentiment during the war. So this whole area, right, just scraps anything related to the Germans. So Germania Ave's got to go. And the originally Tunnelly Avenue is actually just replaced with present-day Tunnelly Avenue. Some streets that have been added to Tyler Park have been Booth Terrace, 6th and 7th Street extensions, expansions of Tunnelly Avenue, and they removed 2 streets, and we'll go in and we'll look at these in a second. But Tyler and Gobish actually planned on this neighborhood spilling into Secaucus, right? And they actually had some roads expand across but during the construction of 1 and 9, they just totally scrapped it. And again, that was much later, but the roads were also scrapped. Now, when we look kind of at the old street names here, right? Secaucus Road, right, which is kind of like a huge landmark for people, right, was once called Peterson Street. 6th Street, right? And again, if you're a downtown person, somebody might have told you about this, but for the rest of us, those uptown people, right, or people from out of town really might not know this, but like Hoboken Street was 6th Street, DeMott was 7th, Cortland was 8th, Gillis was 9th, Hamlet 10th, Adelina 11th, Browning was 12th Street. Let me just move that out of the way. Can't really see what I have there, but Traphagen Street was 14. That's just a fun name to say. But again, these names all changed. They all changed in 1940, 41 when we changed the street names. So we do lose some of the history. Again, for those downtown folks, right? This is the school that folks in Tyler Park would have gone to. It is PS number 7, or the old Jefferson School. Now, again, today, this is a school long gone. Today, this sits where Kennedy School would sit today, which was replaced. This building was replaced sometime in the late 50s, early 60s. We have the old Pioneer Firehouse, right? And this image is coming out of 1910-ish, give or take. Still there. Today's address is 1110 14th Street, right? So if you want to see a great piece of old architecture, right, you could take a walk down 14th Street. Now, this is where like the huge name comes from. And again, it's a huge name for the era. And then like this guy just kind of falls into the cracks of history, which is going to be a real shame. So our goal here tonight was to expand our knowledge on Tyler Park's history, right? And notable residents. And really, there's only one that we could talk about. And I don't mean to overshadow anybody else, but this guy simply does. So Albert Bloses, right, is the guy we are going to talk about, right? He is a notable athlete from Tyler Park. He doesn't get a lot of credit for being an athlete in North Bergen, because again, at this point in time when Al lives in this neighborhood, there is no North Bergen athletics. There's not even a high school at this point in town. Al is actually going to go to school in Jersey City. So he's not going to be this North Bergen icon, right? But he's going to set a standard that is going to live long with a lot of guys in this area, right? Not just North Bergen, but West New York and Union City and Jersey City for very long. Now, despite his greatness, many residents are unfamiliar with him or his accomplishments, and there's a reason why. Bloses is a very just true athlete. Could do anything he tried. Made North Bergen his home from a young age till his death, and he dies fighting for the world against tyranny, right? This guy is going to die during World War II, fighting the Nazis. But let's take a look at Al. There he is. Al is, again, North Bergen kid who gets drafted by the New York Giants, right? So he is the real deal. So Al is 6'6.5" in high school, right? In 1935, he is a 6'6" kid, right? Just like lumbering down the streets of North Bergen. Now, his remarkable height is just unbelievable, because the average height is like high 5s at this point, right? So again, we're not looking at anybody too small or anything, big. Al is a giant amongst these people. So he graduates from Jefferson School, okay? Again, like I said, North Bergen High School is not built until 61. So initially, Al should have gone to Emerson High School at the time, West Hoboken. Today, we know Emerson is now middle school in Union City. However, because of Al's size, because of Al's reputation, he's recruited by the Dickinson Hilltoppers. All right. Coach Charlie Witkowski will purposely go out and get Al to come to school there. And he will play during this time when Dickinson High School went for like 7 years in a row. They never lost a game. All their players went to Division I colleges. They all went into the NFL, right? These were just titans of the sport of that era. Now, it's pretty noticeable for us who live in the area to know that Dickinson High School is pretty far from where we are in North Bergen, especially Al, again, a kid growing up in downtown North Bergen. It's a far hike. It's also the 30s, so there's really no reliable transportation at this point. So it's rumored that Al walked to and from school every day. So again, just to round that off, it's about 6 miles each way that this guy would have been wandering the streets back and forth to school. But I digress, right? Here's Al again in his Giants uniform at the Polo Grounds in 42. Now, after high school, right, he makes his way because again, he's just a natural athlete. He stars at football, excuse me, but he excels in track and field. And that's kind of like his bread and butter, right? Football's a big deal for him, but he makes a name on the track and field. He held national records for years in shot put and the discus throw. And he had just a natural ability. He will go on and he'll play football at Georgetown University. He'll participate in track and field events. He set a shot put record at Georgetown of 56 feet, which stood for several decades. Now, I did ask a couple of track and field guys that I know, and I said, hey, is this like a big deal, right? And then they looked at the year that it happened, and they said, that's not normal. Like, this is like, this is something you expect now, not from somebody in 1935 and in the 36 era. So it's a big deal. Now, out of college, he's drafted by the New York Giants, right? In 42, he's drafted. He plays 3 years for them as an offensive lineman. But again, if you know your history, it's 1942. He plays for 3 years. It's now 45. He really wants to do what most American men did at this time, and he wants to get into the war. So he volunteers to go into his military service at this point. Here he is again and again. Here he's towering over this guy. So again, just his sheer size. Now, he enters the war, and initially he's enlisted as a physical instructor, and he's trained to be an Army officer. Even the Army itself was like, you are too tall to send overseas. Like, we just can't put you in combat. During his training, the Army kept a record. Al blows this through a grenade, a live grenade, 94 yards, right? So again, he threw a grenade the entire length of a football field practically. But because of his persistence, right, because he keeps insisting and going and serving and doing his part, the Army finally agrees, because at this point the war is kind of winding down and it's wrapping up. He's sent over in 45 to France and with the rank of a second lieutenant. So they give him a role where they think he's going to kind of just hang back. They don't put him in any real areas of danger, at least they try not to. It's not until, unfortunately, 2 of his men don't return from a recon mission. And then Al will go after them, and he never returns. He's confirmed that he's killed in France, and Al's life comes to an end, right? So again, much like many of the other men that will go overseas, they meet the same fate. Now, who Al Bloses is, right? His size, his character, the legend that is around him from sports. After his death, he's actually immortalized in a comic book. 1946's true comic, The Human Howitzer, right, is a comic book about Al and his athletic prowess and at how he wants to go over and defeat the Nazis. And, this comic book goes into some detail about him, beating up some Nazis and then eventually meeting his fate, trying to rescue his missing men. So again, he is, again, not just immortalized by some memories in some sports circles, but also in the comic book world. Now, when this happens, when his death makes the news, the Giants retire his number. So number 32 is a retired number for the New York Giants. He gets the Human Howitzer, right? There's some local memorials to him, right? My grandfather, my mom actually still has a jersey of his from when he was a kid, from the Al Bloses League, right? And again, now we're talking like somebody who probably played ball in the 40s, right? Maybe early 50s, but several sport leagues in Hudson County used to bear his name, all right? But again, just as is with everything in history, right? With people moving and demographics shifting, Bloses' memory has largely faded from the area over time. He's, like I said before, he's really remembered in very niche, like sports circles. Um, but outside of that, his memory is more than just gone from our township. Uh, his childhood home is still there. If you wanted to pass by, you could take a look at 1201 14th Street. And again, his home is still there. My bottom dollar is that the current residents are unlikely or likely unaware of Bloses' legend. And again, you know, really when this goes away and Tyler Park starts to fade away in about the 50s or so. There's only really one remnant left of Tyler Park, and it's the postal station that is located over on Kennedy Boulevard. It still bears the name of Tyler Park. Now, another staple in the area, right, is the Coach House, right? And this is a great image of them from 1945. And then Tyler Park today really is it's just a changing landscape, right? And its residents come and go, right? They keep adding to the history of Tyler Park, whether they know it or not. It's the turn of the century landmarks. They've been replaced by newer ones, right? Things that you and I refer to are clearly going to be things differently than, say, our parents or grandparents would refer to. You still have some iconic establishments down here. The Coach House, right? It's a North Bergen staple, right, in the community and near and far. You have Leo's Deli, right? Kind of tucked away. Most people think it's Jersey City. And my wife, who's watching, is probably going to make fun of me now when I get home, but they're an old school deli, and she makes fun of my Hudson County Italian, where they serve prosciutto, right, and mozz on a sandwich. For those of you who are not from the area, prosciutto and mozzarella, as the rest of the world calls it. We still see some ethnic diversity in this area, right? New restaurants or newer restaurants like La Fausta, the Tayano Lounge, or Luna's Coffee Shop, right? They add to the new area's ethnic diversity. And again, the area evolves. Tyler Park is greatly changed since the 1870s. And despite the changes, it flourishes as one of North Bergen's most up-and-coming neighborhoods. So that really could be a testament to the vision that Phineas Tyler and Charles Gobish had when laying out these streets. So is a shorter presentation, right? Because again, there's not a lot of this information we have. I will open it up to some questions here. It could be related to the Tyler Park stuff, could be related to Al Bloses, and anything you guys are interested in. I'm an open book and glad to see what I can answer for you tonight. Nothing, no questions.
Not yet.
I put everybody to sleep, I guess.
Oh, it's from Belinda. She said, there used to be a park called Monroe Park. Is it still there?
I think that is now 10th Street Park. I'm not sure. I've never seen a Monroe Park before. So I'd have to actually double check on that. You might have stopped. That's very rare. I get stumped by a question. I sound so pretentious by saying that. But I've never heard of a Monroe Park. I'm familiar with 10th Street Park, but I'm not sure if Monroe Park was replaced by that or if we're talking somewhere differently.
It was below the huge mountain next to the NB Firehouse.
No, I'm not. I'm stumped on that one. I really am stumped on that one.
And then someone said, hey, Mick, it's Aunt Chris. Is his home historical?
No, the home is not marked by anything.
So you wouldn't know.
Yeah, unless you knew the address, which now everybody knows that. That's the only really way you would know that. Al had no other siblings, right? And then once he had moved on, I'm sorry, excuse me, he had a sister. And once he moved on and the family moved on, there really were no extended family members that were in the neighborhood to kind of let anybody know who Al was and what he did. So no, there is no marker, unfortunately.
Do you know if his remains were ever recovered?
I believe so. Where they are, though, I'm not sure. I think they may still be in France.
Okay.
like again, most people, and again, the Bloses family, they were Hungarian immigrants, his parents. So I'm not sure if they had the means to maybe have him brought back, especially if the burial happened. That's something I would have to look into.
Great history presentation. Why did they rename the streets to numbers?
Okay, that's a great question. It's because Hudson County, we did this thing where everybody named their streets the same things. So you had at one point, Union City did not exist. It was two different towns. You had West Hoboken, which was everything south of 32nd Street, and you had Union Hill, which was everything north of 32nd Street. So you have those two towns. You have West New York, you have North Bergen, and you have Guttenberg. So you have five towns. All of them at one point had an Elm Street. All of them at one point had like Columbia Street. So they had all these names that all matched. Now it was fine at one point because it was said like, okay, well, that's 123 Elm Street in North Bergen. That was fine. The problem is when Union City combined, now you had two Elm Streets, you had two Brown Streets, you had two Smith Streets, and it got too confusing for the Postal Service. So the Postal Service said, okay, well, now Union City, you need to rename all your streets. And Union City put up kind of an argument to that. And they said, why do we have to change our streets if nobody else does? So the Postal Service came out and said, well, now all of you have to change your streets. And there cannot be any street names that match up. So we start now with all the way down on First Street on the Jersey City border and run all the way up to 91st Street in North Bergen. So that all happens in the early 40s. So you went to bed one night at 123 Elm Street and you woke up the next morning at, 11, 10, 14th Street. And again, that all happens strictly because all the streets are named the same thing, and the post service just got tired of mixing up mail.
Someone wanted to know if your mom still has Al's jersey.
My mom does. It's not Al's jersey. It's more from like a little league kind of thing. She still does have it. It's definitely tucked away somewhere. So next time I go to their house, maybe I'll try to steal it.
And then, are there any plaques in town commemorating him?
No, so there's nothing commemorating. I know there's something in Dickinson High School dedicated to him, but again, he did go to Dickinson High School, and the school he went to in North Bergen was knocked down. So I mean, there might have been something in Jefferson School related to him, but I wasn't around for Jefferson School, and most of the things when they leveled the school were kind of lost to time. So no, there's nothing dedicated to him here in town.
I wish Union Hill remained as Union Hill and did not become Union City, cooler name. That answer regarding the number of streets is super interesting, and everyone had to put a number on their house doors.
Yeah, it's really weird because like you would have changed your address. You would have had like a simple number 12, and now all of a sudden you have a 4-digit number. Let's just say when we look at a lot of like the archives, like there's just mass chaos in mail delivery for about like a month and a half after it. To the point where like there's kind of rumors in this area that the Postal Service is just throwing away people's mail until the new address mail starts showing up. Now how true that is, I don't know. It's like a rumor. It was written in like some column, like opinion columns, but that's how chaotic it kind of was for the summer of like 41 here.
And then someone wanted to know for future topics, will you be having a presentation on the heights of North Bergen?
So yeah, maybe Hudson Heights would be something interesting to do. It's a smaller neighborhood. It's got a lot of hotels. Usually I try to roll that into when we talk about Little Coney Island up in the park. But I can see it being something we try to maybe focus a little more on, especially now with our walking tours starting to come back up now.
And then someone also asked, will you do a presentation of cold cases of North Bergen?
Maybe I would love to. I know where that's going. So maybe that's a huge maybe, that one. I might need some approval from someone above my pay grade.
And then Yolanda said, thank you for letting us know about our part of North Bergen. We live down on Liberty Ave near 10th Street. So back in the day, I guess it was Germania Ave and
Correct.
10th Street.
Yeah. What Germania and what?
Hamlet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you would have had two completely different names. And then for those folks on Liberty, like literally in the middle of 1918, their street would have changed names without them even knowing. Just because there was a war going on. They're like, nope, can't have that name. Time to name it something more American. And what's more American than Liberty? So
Someone also wants, Susan would like to know, when will your walking tours be starting?
So the walking tours really depend on the weather. I know they like me to start them in June, but with a beautiful day like today out, I'm also interested in getting outside and walking around. So I'd check the weather forecast the next couple of days. Maybe we could get an early start in May. What it will be on, I still don't know. I'll have to think about it on my ride home tonight, and then we'll let you know as soon as possible.
Christine said they love your presentations.
Oh,
And
thank
Yolanda
you.
said, oh, walking tours, that sounds neat.
Yeah, they're a great time. They're a lot of fun, and we get some exercise and we do some learning. So it's the best of both worlds. All right.
Do the
Oh.
Giants have anything other than retiring his number?
So I reached out to the Giants several times about it because there was a huge plaque dedicated to him at the old Polo Grounds. And the story goes is that it hung up in the Polo Grounds and it was supposedly moved with the Giants when they went to Yankee Stadium. And then it was supposedly moved with them when they came to East Rutherford. So several years ago with the opening of MetLife, I did reach out to them because there is a bit of a museum to the Giants there. And I figured they've got to have it. If not, they've got to know where it is. And the Giants must know that I'm a Patriots fan, so they did not answer me at all. So if you know anybody that works for the Giants organization, tell them I would like to talk to them about this plaque. And then I'm very angry they did not answer my email back.
It would be interesting to know, because I know there was that other serviceman back in 2001, was he from the 49ers, who went overseas?
Oh, Pat Tillman. Yes. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know if there were like what other, because I remember when he absconded to join, it was a huge
Big
deal.
deal. Yeah.
And I think he gave up like $1 million, like
Something like
millions
that. He gave up a
dollars
huge
worth of
contract for that.
money.
Yes. Yeah, it'd be interesting. And again, I would hope that the Giants, and again, this is me speaking of someone who doesn't like the Giants. I hope the Giants wouldn't just throw it away, right? Or just tuck it in a closet somewhere. I'd, who knows? It might be up in Canton. It might be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. That they would probably know, and that's kind of why I wish they would have answered my very well written email that I sent them.
And someone asked, walking tours are amazing. Will you be doing the Red Roadhouse tour again?
So yeah, I mean, as long as the residents of that street are okay with me pointing out their houses to complete strangers, I wouldn't mind doing that one. That's a very fun one to do. We get to learn a lot about like some of the early residents of that town, and we really get to look at, one of the larger developers, Mr. Thompson, who really developed the total north end of town. And he's an interesting guy because he was like the first like viral advertisement, guy who put himself in advertisements in the paper, and he'd be wringing his fist and threatening people that they'd be saving money by using him versus other people. He was a really interesting guy. So I would love to do that one again. But I think we got to knock on a couple of doors and make sure it's okay with some of the people who live there first.
Someone also asked, but why is Weehawken Cemetery named as Weehawken Cemetery?
Sure. So it's the same reason Hoboken Cemetery is also in North Bergen.
Is it really?
Yeah. There's no room in Weehawken or Hoboken for anything. So all these cemeteries were built in North Bergen because nobody was here. So if you ever notice, like our cemeteries are really close together in some areas. You have Flower Hill and Hoboken and McPhalia. I always pronounce that one wrong. They're all smushed together, and we have Palisades and Weehawken and the Mausoleum, and they're all smushed together. And it's done because, well, there was nobody here. And somebody had the bright idea to say, like, well, I'm going to buy that property and put a cemetery there. So that's why they're there. They're really just there because Hoboken needed a place to bury people. Weehawken needed a place to bury people, and other people just were like, "Well, that's a good business, so we're gonna have that there." We were fortunate enough to get the okay in October. We did a great walking tour in Grove Church Cemetery, and they've invited us back. They said we come back anytime we like. So that might be actually one of our summer walking tours, just to get a little more in depth into the cemetery itself.
You know, I wouldn't have thought about it, but it makes sense. Everything in Hoboken is so.
Right, it's so
Like, you
condensed.
can't
Yeah.
even park, but I never realized that there was no cemetery.
It's true. Can't park a car, can't bury everybody.
No, this is thank you.
No, anytime. All right. We got nothing else, guys. Thanks for taking a little bit of time to join me tonight. I appreciate it. Hope to see you guys at the next one. And if you ever need anything, you can always shoot me a message on the North Bergen Historical Facebook page. Any general questions you got or research questions or anything you need, we're here to help you out.
Recording.
All right.
Figure out how to stop recording.
Sure. All right, guys. Have a great night.